everything you know about science is a lie, or at least it could be. You see, every scientific truth we've ever accepted is just a theory, an assumption we hope is right, but might not be. Gravity, just a theory. Relativity, just a theory. Even the laws of physics themselves, all based on human interpretation, experiments, and here's the kicker, limited technology. So what if I told you that every scientific theory you believe in could be completely fake? Everything you know about science might just be a temporary guess. That sounds insane, right? After all, science is supposed to be about facts, truth, and the fundamental laws of reality. But here's the thing. Science doesn't deal in absolute truths. It deals in theories. And theories? Well, they change, they evolve, and sometimes they completely collapse. Let's break this down. A scientific theory isn't some undeniable fact of the universe. It's a model, a best guess based on observations and experiments. It works until it doesn't. And when it stops working, science simply replaces it with another theory. This means that every fact we believe today might just be a placeholder for a better explanation we haven't discovered yet. Think about it. There was a time when some of the brightest minds in history knew, not believed, but knew that the Earth was the center of the universe. This wasn't some random folktale. It was a scientific theory, backed by evidence, mathematical models, and centuries of intellectual thought. The geocentric model explained why the sun and stars seemed to move around us. It made sense until it didn't. And when Copernicus, Galileo, and Kepler came along with new data, the whole idea was thrown out. What was once an unquestionable fact became an outdated joke. But that's just one example. Science is littered with discarded theories that people once accepted as absolute truth. Ever heard of phlogiston theory? In the 17th and 18th centuries, scientists believed that fire burned because of a mysterious invisible element called phlogiston. If something burned, it must have been full of phlogiston. If something couldn't burn, well, it just didn't have any. That was the scientific consensus. It fit the observations, until we discovered oxygen and realized the entire theory was nonsense. Or what about the caloric theory? This one's hilarious. Scientists believed heat was a fluid, an actual substance that flowed from hot objects to cold ones. This theory was used to explain why metal expands when heated and why objects cool down over time. Again, it worked. It seemed logical. Until we figured out that heat isn't a substance at all, it's just the movement of molecules. And once we understood thermodynamics, caloric theory was tossed in the trash. See the pattern here? Scientific theories work until we realize they don't. They explain reality until a better explanation comes along. This isn't just ancient history, either. Even modern physics isn't immune. Newton's laws of motion were rock solid for centuries, until Einstein came along and proved they weren't entirely accurate. Einstein's relativity then became the new gold standard, until quantum mechanics started poking holes in that too. And here's the wild part. What if everything we accept today as scientific fact is just another stepping stone? What if the theories we treat as unquestionable truth are actually flawed models, waiting to be replaced by something even bigger? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Science is just an approximation. It's our best attempt to describe reality, but it's never truly correct, only less wrong than what came before. So if today's scientific theories are just temporary, how can we ever claim to truly know anything? But here's where it gets even crazier. Science isn't just temporary, it's also self-referential, meaning it only works within its own set of rules. Think of it like a board game. Science sets the rules, plays the game, and then declares itself the winner. It builds models that explain observations, but those models only work within the framework science itself has created. That's why every scientific breakthrough doesn't necessarily bring us closer to the truth. It just rewrites the game so that the new rules make sense. Take Newton's laws of motion. For centuries, they were the gold standard of physics. They explained everything, from why apples fall to the ground to how planets orbit the sun. They worked so well that people just assumed they were universal, applying everywhere, at all scales, forever. But then we started looking closer. We started asking, wait a minute, do these rules still work when things get really fast or really small? And suddenly, Newton's laws broke down. Enter Einstein's relativity. Newton said gravity was a force pulling objects together. Einstein said, nah, gravity is actually the bending of space and time. And guess what? Einstein was more right than Newton. His equations explained things Newton's couldn't, like why Mercury's orbit doesn't quite match Newtonian predictions or how time slows down near a black hole. So does that mean Einstein finally figured out the ultimate truth? Nope, because then we zoomed in even further, into the quantum world, and suddenly relativity stopped working too. In the world of quantum mechanics, particles don't behave in neat, predictable ways. They exist in multiple states at once, pop in and out of existence, and are governed by probabilities rather than certainties. And worst of all, relativity and quantum mechanics directly contradict each other. So, which one is correct? Well, neither. Or both. Or neither and both. Science just works within whatever model is most useful at the time. See the problem here? Science presents its theories as the way the universe works. But history shows us that every scientific theory is eventually replaced by something else. Meaning, everything we know today, gravity, time, space, energy, even the very fabric of reality itself, could be just another approximation that future scientists will one day laugh at. This is the illusion of truth in science. Theories are accepted only as long as they work. The second they fail, they're discarded or rewritten. It's not that science is wrong on purpose, it's that it's never actually right to begin with. It just keeps adjusting itself until it seems right, for now. So the real question is, how do we know that today's science won't be completely obsolete in 100 years? What if the universe doesn't even work the way we think it does? What if we're just playing by a set of temporary rules, waiting for the next Einstein to come along and flip the entire game board? And if that's the case, then what does that say about everything we believe to be real? See, science acts like it's uncovering universal truths. But if you break it down, every law, every equation, every fundamental principle we use to explain reality is based on something we just assume to be true. Take the speed of light, for example. We say it's a universal constant, always the same, no matter where you are. But how do we actually know that? We can measure it here, sure, we can even see light traveling through space. But can we measure the speed of light everywhere in the universe? In every galaxy? In the vast, empty voids between them? Number, we assume it's the same everywhere because if it weren't, our entire understanding of physics would start crumbling. Or how about the laws of physics themselves? We assume that the same physical laws we observe on Earth apply throughout the cosmos. But do they? We can't exactly fly to the edge of the universe and check. What if the laws of nature are different in other places? What if gravity works differently in some distant galaxy? What if time itself bends and twists in ways we can't even comprehend? But we don't think about that because science has to make these assumptions just to function. If it didn't, we'd be stuck questioning everything and getting nowhere. And this isn't just about physics. Even in fields like biology and chemistry, science leans on unprovable premises. Take evolution, for instance. We assume natural selection drives the process of species development because we see how traits change over time. But have we directly observed a single-celled organism evolving into a completely new, complex species? Not really. We assume that's how it works because the data we have suggest it, but we can't actually observe it happening over millions of years. Matter of fact, the theory of evolution has been disproven by many other scientists and scholars. Even Darwin himself found flaws in his own theory. But that's for another video. Now, on to my point. This is what's known as the infinite regression problem. Every scientific idea, no matter how well supported, is ultimately based on something else that we just take for granted. And if you keep following that chain of assumptions far enough, you eventually hit a wall, a point where science can't explain why anymore, just because. It's like a house built on a foundation that we never actually checked. We just hope the foundation is solid because we have no other choice. But what if it's not? What if we're completely wrong about some of the most fundamental aspects of reality and we don't even realize it? At this point, science starts to look less like an absolute truth and more like a belief system. We put our trust in it, follow its rules, and assume that it will always lead us in the right direction. But just like every past theory that's been overturned, how do we know that the entire framework of modern science isn't just another temporary illusion? And if that's the case, what does that mean for everything we think we know? Now, before you start throwing your physics textbooks out the window, let's be clear about one thing. None of this means science is useless. Far from it. Just because science is built on assumptions and constantly rewriting itself doesn't mean it doesn't work. I mean, look around. The fact that you're watching this video on a device powered by electricity, running on semiconductors, connected through an invisible network of data transmission, all of that is thanks to science. It clearly gets results. But here's where it gets interesting. Science works because it's wrong. That might sound crazy, but think about it. The entire scientific process is just a cycle of making mistakes, realizing we were wrong and correcting them. Theories don't last forever. They change, and sometimes get completely thrown out. What we call scientific progress is really just the slow, painful process of proving ourselves wrong over and over again. This is why we should never take any scientific theory as absolute truth. Remember, people once believed the Earth was the center of the universe, that sickness was caused by bad air instead of bacteria and viruses. That time was an absolute fixed thing, until Einstein came along and shattered that illusion. What makes us think today's theories won't suffer the same fate? If history has taught us anything, it's that we are probably wrong about a lot of things right now. So what does that mean for us? It means we should question everything. Don't just accept something as fact because a scientist said so. Challenge it. Dig deeper. Ask yourself, how do we know this is true? What assumptions is it based on? Could it be proven wrong in the future? Because the moment we start treating scientific theories as unshakable truth, we stop doing science altogether. Science isn't about blind belief. It's about constant skepticism, constant revision, and the willingness to admit we were wrong. So keep questioning. Keep thinking critically. Because if there's one thing we can be sure of, it's that we're probably still in the dark about a whole lot more than we think. So what do you think? Is science just an evolving set of guesses? Are all theories just placeholders for bigger truths we haven't discovered yet? Let me know in the comments if you think science is fake, or if I've completely lost my mind.